Welcome back, my name is Russell Pearson. This is a continuing Rusty production today. In the last video we got a whole lot of pellet wood. We recovered the wood from pellets that we were able to find just lying around on the road, things like that. I don't know if that's something I should be doing, but that's where we got our pellets. Today we're going to be building ourselves a barn door from that pellet wood. So if you haven't seen the pellet one and you want to work out how to recover or an easy way to actually get the wood off the pellets, you can go check that out. I'll leave it in the description below and you can check that out at some other time. But today we're going to be building ourselves a barn door. Now, anybody who's been watching my videos understands that I'm a novice when it comes to blacksmithing. Well, if you think I'm a novice when it comes to blacksmithing, I'm even more of a novice when it comes to woodwork. So we're going to be using some power tools today. We're going to be doing some techniques I've never tried before. So enjoy that. Let's get started. So here I've got myself a couple of designs that I put onto the computer, and I've just used Illustrator to do these things because I've got a previous graphic design experience. So that's the software that I use for these sort of designs. There's a couple of different designs that I could go with, and I'm going to try for this one here. And while I've got two, this is going to be the front and this is going to be the back. And the idea is that these pieces in the middle are going to be wedged in there between these pieces and these pieces on the outside. So I've taken these two sides and I've broken it all up into these pieces of wood. So that's the pieces that I'm going to be cutting now. So as you can see, I don't have a lot of space. What I've done is I've gone through the process of getting all the boards off the pallets. We've got some left over that aren't great. They're not in great shape. There's some cracks down them, and there's split edges off the side. Now some of those split edges actually look pretty good because it makes the actual door, well, it's going to make the door look a little rustic, which I'm happy with. But things like this one, for instance, they're just not going to cut it. So I'll put them to the side, and potentially we can use them for something else, or use it as firewood at some point in the future. The only things that I've had to get is a couple of longer boards that are going to stretch the full height of the door. And so I think for $4 a piece from the local hardware shop, I was able to pick up these two pieces, which are 2.4 meters long each. And I'm going to have to cut them down short because we only want the door to be, I think it's 2050 millimeters, so that's 2050 millimeters tall. It's a slightly unusual size that I've got on this workshop as far as the height of the door and how that's all going to work, but I'm making it custom for this space. I'm not going to be using it for anything else. So I'll cut it up the end after measuring, and I need to rip the boards to make them a little thinner along here. So I'll be using two tools to do that. One's going to be the miter saw I've picked up over in the corner. Got that one on eBay, which is fantastic. And then obviously the workstation here that I've got a circular saw pointing up for to rip the board. So I'll measure up, and then we'll get cutting. So we've got our miter saw all set up. We've got our line that we're going to be cutting down. I've got the two pieces of wood I'm going to cut at the same time, which should actually make a cleaner cut here. This is not the best blade for me to be using. That's quite a rough blade for clean cuts, so I'm just going to cut slightly out further and I can sand back later. And I've got a piece of board at the bottom here as well, so that it just doesn't create a lot of splintering at the bottom of the board. That's one of the tips I've seen. So we'll do this in a moment, but I just wanted to quickly show you the lack of room I've got in here. So there's my vise. I've wound that all the way out to give me the space to actually pass the board through. There's my anvil, and here we have clamped off at the other end, just so we've got a nice, clean, even space. Is another board that I'm actually using to hold the end, so that it's all in the right space. What I might just do as well is I'll put something underneath here and move them out of the way, just so when it does actually cut through, it's going to have a little bit of support. It's not going to move too much. So I'll do that and I'll get cutting. Safety first. Slide out, which I'll be able to use for this one. There we go. go. So there's a little bit of splintering you can see here, but it's not too bad. And it's actually not a bad, it's a clean-ish sort of cut given the blade that I'm using. So bang, we've got our lock pieces cut to the right size. Ready for next step. It's all starting to get a bit tight in here. This is a Triton work center that I happened to come across at an auction. Incredibly happy that I was able to pick this up. Got it for $110. I believe these things go for about $700 new. Obviously it's second hand, but it comes with all the parts. So we've got the fence. I've already set up a circular saw underneath here, and in essence we're going to be putting our wood through the center here and trying to create some matching pieces so that all the widths are the same, and as per those plans that you saw. So let's get cracking. Right, flush forward, all the wood's cut. There is sawdust everywhere. I did use a mask when I was doing the cutting, but I have to say, doing the woodwork versus the metal work, it seems like there is more of this wood is more toxic than the metal. Could be wrong. Let me know in the comments below. The guard came in really useful. By the way, this is completely off, and it's unplugged as well, so I'm not going to accidentally like cut my wrists. Fingers crossed. I'll show you all the wood that we've prepared, and then we'll get ready to build this thing. All right, this is the result of my labours. So that's 11 plus 16, so we're talking about 27 pieces all up, all cut to various lengths. Some of these are going to be a lot shorter on this side, where I've got my 16 slats from, especially from the pallets, that they're going to be the diagonal pieces that are going to be a little bit more decorative, and some of them, some of that will be wastage, and some of it won't be. We'll need the full length for, so I've just kept them at the full length to start with, and we can cut them down when we're using the miter saw. But this is it. So now I'll have to start putting together the frame, and then I'll start miter cutting each of the pieces for the center. So wish me the best of luck. Quick note, I'm going to be cleaning up all this stuff before I do any blacksmithing. And ideally I should clean that up sooner rather than later, because that is more than a fire hazard. So I flipped over the frame and that's all looking pretty good. But one thing I've realized is that my design is flawed. If I want to get all my pieces and run them across here, miter the edges and actually have them sit inset into here, there's only a couple of places where the board can be secured. One is here, or one is here, and then one is at the top. So there's going to be pieces where it's only going to be secured here and here, and then it's going to come and butt up against this bit of timber along here, and that's just not going to work, because we're going to end up having wood buckling and all sorts of stuff as it dries even more over time. So I'm going to have to re-look at my design, and one of the things I'm thinking is that we can actually just run straight planks along here. That was one of the options originally, and then once they're all in place, put another diagonal over the top to just lock it all in. And I think we might end up doing something like that. I don't mind that idea, but the only thing with that is I need to get these pieces to join as cleanly as possible. And you can see even here, if we look closely, you can see gaps through there. You can see the light there. And so one of the things is the mathematics between here and there are different than what it was diagonally. So we're going to have to take a little bit of material off the edge of each of these boards to get it to the right amount so that we can get 8 across if we're going to do it that way. The other option is to come up with some different joints and rather than just butt jointing it. But I don't know if I have the tools. I don't have a router, and I don't have the patience, I think, to go and actually hand do what would be 16 boards, 2 sides. So I think what we're going to do, go up and just look at the maths of it all, but basically I think we're going to get these as square as possible to one another, sort of butt them up one another and get it as tight as I possibly can so that they really force themselves into there. And it will end up with a little bit of light showing through, and obviously over time with any shrinkage of the wood we'll get even more light. But I think for the first go around building a door for the first time without any real instruction, I think that still will be a very nice result, and something that'll at least last several years. So I'll come back once we've worked it all out. Alright, so I've reviewed the design and done a few numbers, and based on the exact width of what we're looking at behind me rather than what my design is, it's actually 2 mils out from where I designed all the way along the width of it. I need to do a little bit of cutting, so I'm going to run the boards vertical to the door, and I think that's still going to have a really nice effect. I'm not going to worry too much about the butt joints and actually trying to do any other type of joint for each of the planks, but what I am going to try and do is actually get in there as tight as possible and as cleanly as possible so that we've got as little gap between each of the planks as possible. I said possible a lot because we don't know if any of this is possible. It's all just trial and error. And I know that there are people out there screaming for me to do it a certain way. Unfortunately, this will have happened prior to you watching this video, and there's no way for you to let me know. But let me know in the comments if there was a better way to actually look at doing this. Alright, so I need to cut down each of the planks from 95 mils to 89 mils. If I'm even off by half a mil each of these planks, we're going to end up with 4 mils additional, and that's a lot of metric talk for everybody in the US, but please follow along anyway. 4 mils is about this much, and that's going to be too much if I'm off by a little bit, so I need to get very close to exact, though I might just lean on the outside of a millimeter just so that we can get everything nice and tight when I actually go and screw it all in. So, a bit of cutting, and then we can look at how it all fits together. So I've put the boards in, I've glued underneath each of them. So there's glue on the back of this, there's glue on each of these boards, and there's glue underneath it. If I get around the corner, you can see there's all those gaps through there. So what we're going to be doing is, I'm using the clamps just to hold it in place, but the screws should draw all that together, and then that'll hopefully work out. So I'll show you in the next one how we actually went through the gluing process, but I'm going to get these drilled in now. Alright, so I've got the boards pretty square along here. I've put glue underneath all of them. I'm going to put glue along the top, and then I'm going to be putting this thinner piece of timber like so, and then drill them all in. Now what I found with the top is that I needed to really clamp down each of these pieces before actually drilling it so that I got a good bite and actually got a good contact with all the boards underneath before it actually put the drill through. It was actually giving off a lot of pressure because these things are trying to twist and move and just get out of proportion. So I'll get some glue on there, and then we'll get all the screws in. So I drilled little pilot holes with this thin drill bit, and they seem to be going in a lot better. They're not cracking the wood or anything like that, and that's what we're after. Just put another one in just to prove the point, but I am having to clamp it all the way along, just to make sure that I'm getting a nice tight seal on those boards. Cool. So I'm getting there. I think this last part here is where I'm up to. The trick with that is the thing is near spring loaded, so I'm going to have to take these clamps off. The boards are going to lift right up. I'm going to have to put glue underneath them, and then put this board glued on top and reclamp it. Trick is to try and get some sort of solid clamp in the center here. So I might try and use a thinner board that goes right across the top, then clamp on that, and then I can drill on either side. So I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. Like, there's two screws in every plank all the way along, and they're certainly in there solidly. But I want to flip this over, see how we're looking on the other side, and ideally screw into the battens on the other side first before putting them in on this side. Let's see, what's the pretty side? Neither. I like both sides. I don't know which side should face out, but I think what I'll do is I'll put the screws in this side and this other side first. I'll do that because it's just the more solid side. Okay, story's starting to become quite heavy. So I put screws in all the way along here. I placed a piece of timber underneath, just in this middle section to push all the boards up while I was screwing it all in. You might have noticed that there's a difference between the design and this because I've made a mistake. This should have been around the other side. So this is now the ugly side. So this will be the internal side. This is the internal door. Okay, let's get the fishing rod out of the way. Alright, so we've got the battens in, and we just need to sand this all down and then get some stain. It's probably going to be a walnut stain on this one, nice and dark brown. And then I will, I've also got to get some like putty type stuff for the wood just to fill in some of these holes and some of these cracks where they're already there in the timber. And then we'll stain it. So a couple more things to do, but we are just about there. So I was just about to go and get the filler for the wood just to take care of any of these little holes and cracks. When I looked at an online video about what is the best thing to use for filler in wood. And one of the options is actually something I can use quite well. So I've got a heap of sawdust, and the idea is that you actually take just the glue you're using on the wood and sawdust, and you mix it together and create a sort of a paste. Now, I don't know, it didn't look online like it was the best result, but I thought I'd come down here and try it, and it's working really well. And I think that's because this barn door is really, the idea of it is to have it fairly rustic. So it's supposed to be not rubbish, but not like French polish clean. It's supposed to be rough and ready and have that appeal to it. So I'll quickly show you what I'm doing to fill in the holes and with a little bit of a close-up. So here's the sawdust. I've got an absolute heap of it. And we'll use these little holes as an example. So I'll go and get, I'm just going to shake a second because I'm just going to shake the glue. It's just standard sort of Tarzan grip wood glue. And just shake it down a speck. Put a little bit over the, hang on, there, just like that, and like that. And then I'll take some of the finer shavings and I put it over the top like so. And literally I just rub it in. and if you can look there, I mean the stills are there, the holes are there, but it's filled in, and so it's worked even better on some of these cracks. So this wood has cracks all the way along it, and see, that was major cracks through there. Now I'm going to sand it all back, and it might come out, but it might not work exactly right. But there's next to no cost for this, so I was really happy at the results. So these are all major cracks, and then they're filled in with glue and the sawdust, which at the end of the day creates just more wood to stain. So pretty happy with that. So now cleaning it off, obviously. I've got to sand it back, and I've got an electric sander. Well, it's an orbital sander, so it's still a bit of work. But sand it back, see if I can get the texture to show through on the wood, because that's ideally what I want to show, and then I am staining it. So better get to work. Okay, so we're ready to stain this baby, and I've decided to get this, I think you pronounce it Merbau or Merbu wood finish, so it's kind of dark one. So I was going to go for walnut, but this is actually a darker stain for the treated pine. So oil-based exterior paint. I'm going to be putting it on with a brush to start with, and then use the rag to get into the corners. I don't think there's anything else to do but get started. She's not light. Stirring liberally with a paddle. It's another technique I saw, taking a cloth and wipe off the excess after you've left it on there for a little bit. And what it does, and it really does work, is it reveals sort of the texture or the different patterns in the wood, and it really, well, it's giving this a lot more character than it certainly originally had. So that's just about one side done. Got to do a little bit more here, and I will come back. That's all the time we've got for today. I've been Rusty Pearson. This is another Rusty production. And look, if you're liking what you're seeing, please throw us a like. If you want to see more of this, please subscribe. In the next video, we're going to be coming back and looking at the mechanics of the door and how we're actually going to fit it to the wall itself. There's a lot of effort in this. You'll see other YouTube videos where it takes about 2 minutes to build a barn door. I'm trying to show you some of the realities, some of the mistakes, but even in the edit, we're missing hours and hours worth of footage. But I hope you're enjoying it anyway. And look, until next time, thanks so much for watching.